Have a Merry Christmas, and God bless you. Bye.
Now that's when America was surely flawed, but far more respectable and far greater than the hollow stuff that passes for patriotism today. In our featured breaking story from today's Washington Post, Vietnam draft dodger Donald Trump dropped a lump of coal into the combat boots of millions of veterans with today's incredible announcement. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. Hit that subscribe button because, as Ben Franklin said, we must indeed hang together, or most assuredly, we'll hang separately. Now, in our featured story today, well, it's a continuation of Donald Trump's openly hostile disregard for our nation's veterans, which is well documented.
Dating is like being in Vietnam. You're the equivalent of a soldier going over to Vietnam. And if you have any guilt about not having gone to Vietnam, right, we have our own Vietnam. It's called the dating game.
Did you say that more people were killed by women in this act than killed in Vietnam?
Yes.
Okay.
That is true.
And you get criticized for that statement, but that statement is very easy.
I even went as far to say that you're braver than any Vietnam vet because you're out there screwing a lot of women.
Dangerous to women than women are to men.
Oh, come on.
Congressional Medal of Honor in actuality.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured.
You know, something very nice just happened to me. A man came up to me and he handed me his Purple Heart. And I said, man, that's like big stuff. I always wanted to get the Purple Heart. This was much easier.
Wow, what a guy. So with my dad's Purple Heart close by, you toad, here's today's breaking story of institutional humbug and bureaucratic holiday inhumanity. Today's report in the Washington Post, just this morning, is the end result of a year-long effort to screw our vets by the uncourageous Trump administration. Here's how we got to today's disturbing news.
New at 5:30, from nurses to politicians to union members, all are sounding the alarm over potential cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Under the Trump administration, the department is considering a reorganization that could mean cutting 80,000 jobs. WGN's Angelica Sanchez was at a rally outside Hines VA Hospital.
Politicians will show up for parades, we'll wave those flags, we'll give our speeches about how much we love veterans, but this is the proof. What are we willing to do to give dignity to those veterans when they need that help the most?
U.S. Senator Dick Durbin joined veterans, nurses, union members, and local leaders outside Edward Hines Jr. VA Hospital in a rally to demand the Trump administration abandon plans to cut about 80,000 workers from the VA department.
We're facing cuts in the VA system that will really disable the VA system.
The rally was organized by National Nurses United. As of now, it's unclear what workers would be laid off.
We are so worried and so concerned and so afraid that we won't be able to give that quality care that the VA is known for.
In our breaking story today from the Washington Post, VA plans to abruptly eliminate tens of thousands of healthcare jobs. The Department of Veterans Affairs plans to abruptly eliminate as many as 35,000 healthcare positions this month, mostly unfilled jobs, including doctors, nurses, and support staff, according to an internal memo, VA staffers, and congressional aides. The cuts come after a massive reorganization effort already resulted in the loss of almost 30,000 employees this year. Agency leaders have instructed managers across the Veterans Health Administration, the agency's healthcare arm, to identify thousands of openings that can be canceled. Employees warn that the contraction will add pressure to an already stretched system, contributing to longer wait times for care. The decision comes after Veterans Affairs Secretary Douglas A. Collins, under political pressure from Congress, backed away from a plan to slash 15% of the agency's workforce through mass firings. Instead, VA lost almost 30,000 employees this year from buyout offers and attrition. The agency hopes that the cuts will reduce the healthcare workforce to as little as 372,000 employees, a 10% reduction from last year, according to a memo shared with regional leaders last month and obtained by the Washington Post. Details of the cuts came into focus in recent days, according to 17 staffers at VA and congressional aides who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they didn't have permission to share the plans. VA spokesman Pete Kasperwitz confirmed the planned cuts for unfilled positions. He said the healthcare system is eliminating 26,400 of its open jobs, which he described as mostly COVID-era roles that are no longer necessary. This reorganization comes in advance of an expected announcement next week that Collins plans to also shrink the network of 18 regional offices that administer the nation's VA hospitals and medical centers, according to 4 people familiar with the plan. Staff at those regional offices help determine policies and manage staffing. Collins and others have been critical of the agency's top-heavy administrative offices, arguing that staffing cuts there will free up more resources for health care. Collins stood down from planned mass firings this year after a bipartisan mix of lawmakers expressed concerns about cuts affecting patient care. The agency said mission-critical positions were exempted from the buyouts and retirement offers. Since then, lawmakers have sought greater oversight of the agency's staffing plans. In the agreement to reopen the government last month, lawmakers allocated $133 billion in discretionary funding for the VA with conditions, including that the agency could not reduce staffing for suicide prevention programs and would provide updates on staffing counts. Thomas Doggone Jr., Deputy General Counsel of the American Federation of Government Employees, which represents more than 320,000 VA employees, said the union has not been consulted by the agency about the cuts, but has heard about concerns from its members. The VA has been chronically understaffed for years, and employees are obviously going to be facing the brunt of any further job cuts or reorganization that results in employees having to do more work with less. Dargan said, "The bad news arrived last Friday for employees of the VA San Diego healthcare system in an exclamation-filled email from Director Frank Pearson. He wrote that he'd been expecting this year to fill 734 job vacancies with new nurses, doctors, and other staff to help care for the almost 90,000 veterans that the San Diego system regularly serves. But sometime this fall, he wrote, higher-ups decided to do some housekeeping and cleanup of the books, informing the San Diego system that it only had the budget to retain 4,429 employees going into fiscal year 2026. That meant, Pearson wrote in bold, all caps, underlined letters, that 322 vacant positions need to be eliminated. One of the VA employees who received the email said that in the mental health section alone, there were 78 open positions as of this month, about half of which will now go away. Currently, the employee noted, veterans in the San Diego area are waiting between 60 and 90 days to access VA mental health services. Staff are already strained and exhausted after a difficult year, the employee said, and we're counting on reinforcements. We're all doing the work of others to compensate, she said. The idea that relief isn't coming is really disappointing. Disappointing and potentially deadly for those who will lose access to what they were promised when they proudly chose to serve. Now, in the meantime, we'll remind you that unlike, the Kennedys, who live free in Trump's head, not one Trump, past or present, has ever worn a uniform or signed up to serve. And on that note, let's share this great read on the truth about Trooper Trump and Pansy Pete and their love for veterans, one in particular.
Heroes still walk among us. So do cowards and fools. When Trump and Hegseth threatened to court-martial veteran Senator Mark Kelly, ordering a decision by December 10, they took on the wrong American warrior. 25 years a Navy captain, 39 missions in Desert Storm. A pilot who came under enemy fire over Iraq and Kuwait, he's not scared of these guys. See, Mark Kelly had the audacity to tell the truth. The exact same thing Hegseth said himself.
That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos.
And you know what an unlawful order looks like? Maybe ordering a double tap to kill civilians they weren't authorized to attack in the first place. And if there's any question about who okayed that,
I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat.
Mark Kelly is standing up for our troops, and patriots have his six.